You know, I've worked with a few hundred clients over the past 7 years of being StoryBrand certified, and sometimes that initial session can feel like opening a can of worms. You pop the lid and suddenly it's crawling with deeper questions about your entire business strategy. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, it can be a sign that you're about to make a massive leap forward. But it does mean you need to ask yourself some questions and do some foundational work prior to jumping in. So today we're going to talk about all the prep work that can save you from those just stress-inducing surprises later on. So if you're a founder or a marketer about to invest in brand messaging, specifically the StoryBrand process, stick around. I'll unpack things you should check off before you jump into this process. So let's get into it. The first thing I want to talk about is, just like you need clarity in messaging, you also need to get clear on your business goals and key metrics. Why this matters is StoryBrand is a powerful messaging framework, but it's not a silver bullet. It's designed to help you communicate your value and communicate it more effectively, but it doesn't define your entire business strategy. So if you're uncertain about revenue targets, market position, or growth plans, the StoryBrand process, it might not move the needle. So the question you need to ask yourself is, do you have specific measurable goals? Like, do you have revenue targets or product launch objectives? Do you want to boost conversions? And do you have key performance indicators to track, like website conversions, email signups, whatever it might be? So my suggestion is that prior to StoryBrand, that you articulate specific measurable goals and have a few key metrics in mind to track success. Another hurdle people face when getting into StoryBrand is that you need to align stakeholders and decision makers. For example, if you have co-founders, both founders probably have some stake in the messaging and they need to be aligned. And the same can be true of leadership teams or even investors. Everyone needs to be on the same page about your core message and market approach. It can be really frustrating to invest in the StoryBrand process and then encounter internal pushback. So make sure that key decision makers, co-founders, partners, investors, make sure they all share the same vision. And make sure that everyone involved in the brand or marketing is committed to a new messaging direction. I suggest scheduling an alignment meeting because you're going to have to get buy-in from the people who actually create the marketing or brand strategy. All right, number 3, and I think this might be the most important thing on the list. You need to name your ideal customer. The customer is the hero, right? So if you aren't crystal clear on who they are, how do you know what they want? And what problems do they need solved? You've heard riches are in the niches. Well, in StoryBrand, this is where that really comes in. Knowing exactly who that ideal client is. The first question I ask in a strategy session is, who is your ideal client? And then we get really specific about things like age, gender, where they live, where they went to school, what level of education they have. We talk about things like their values and even brand affiliations. Where do they shop? What do they buy? What logos might you see on their clothing? And we even talk about the unsavory stuff like politics and religion, because it's important to know the way that their mind is thinking about the world. If you want a better understanding of your ideal client, I actually created a guide to help you with this. It's the exact framework I use with clients. All you need to do is go to thebrandnerd.com/ideal client and you download the PDF. Okay, on to number 4. Number 4, you need to define your unique value proposition, UVP. Don't you hate it when someone uses an acronym that you don't understand? That's exactly what UVP was to me the first time I heard of it, but it is actually something we are already doing in our process. because it's important to know what makes your company unique compared to the competition. This matters because StoryBrand helps you frame your story around what your customer truly needs. If you don't know what sets you apart, you'll struggle to communicate why people should choose you over a competitor. So can you articulate how your offer is different or better than the competition? If not, make a list of your brand's unique strengths, offerings, and benefits. A big help can be asking existing customers why they chose to work with you and continue to work. Number 5 is decide on your brand voice or personality. A compelling StoryBrand script is consistent with how you want your brand to sound and feel. So if you haven't defined your voice, like, is it friendly? Is it professional? Is it humorous? You'll keep reinventing it with every new piece of content. In a founder-led business, the personality and desires of the founder take on the whole business. So before jumping into a messaging project, define the tone you want to use on your StoryBrand message so that it feels authentic to your brand. And if you're planning on working with a consultant, find someone who does a good job at communicating in that tone. Number 6, you need to map out your customer journey. A lot of people come into these sessions understanding how customers find them or how they move towards a purchase. And StoryBrand can optimize how you engage and convert prospects, but only if you understand where you're going to plug in your messaging. So, do you know your customer journey? If not, sketch it out in stages. Where do they find out about you? Where are they doing their due diligence on you? Like, is it on your website? Is it in the email? And then the decision itself, is it a phone call? Is it on the website? And then post-purchase is important to consider as well. Are you following up to get their feedback on how the service or product went? Number 7 is actually something that often comes up after the fact. I don't always realize this in the strategy session, but you have to have capacity to implement the StoryBrand framework. So, we do all this great work, but it doesn't do you any good if it doesn't get executed. Building a brand script, refreshing a website, launching email campaigns requires investment, an investment of resources like time and budget. So if you don't have time, if you don't have a budget, then you're probably not ready to implement. And then if you are, you need to know who's doing it. If you're a solopreneur, you need to block out the time that you're going to work on this. And if you have a team, well, then you need to designate the tasks and deadlines so that your messaging doesn't just sit there being unused. And frankly, you should consider outsourcing. This can drastically speed up the time to where your message starts to bear fruit. So hiring a StoryBrand guide like myself to actually not only walk you through the process, but then create the actual things that you're going to execute. And even going so far as not just writing, but then there's design considerations, technical considerations like web development and email automation. All of this stuff can be outsourced, but you need to know ahead of time so that you can get this done as fast as possible. Number 8 is again something that comes up after the fact, and that is that StoryBrand isn't a once and done exercise. You need to iterate on your messaging, especially if you're testing new offers or you have a lot of products and services. Many companies have products and services that each have their own ideal client and story. So while this might seem overwhelming, it highlights the importance of using StoryBrand in everything that you do. So it's good to set up a timeline or some regular check-ins, weekly, monthly, quarterly, to revisit your brand script, track the actual progress of how things are going, and establish new messaging when you need it. Again, this is something that you should consider hiring someone in an advisory role to deliver that consistency and accountability. Someone who understands your brand strategy, who can do copywriting, new campaigns, and even just offer that kind of like on-call support, because questions pop up from time to time. And it's nice to know that you're an email or a phone call away from a quick answer. So I hope you'll consider me for that role. I just think if you're going to invest the energy and time into something like StoryBrand, you should get the most out of it. And if you want to get the most ROI out of this investment, having someone who's walking through it with you on a regular basis is going to go a long way. All right, well, that wraps up my list. And if you've been thinking, wow, I definitely need to clarify a few things before jumping into StoryBrand, then I hope you're already one step ahead of the game now. But if you take one thing away from this, I would hope it is that you need to know who your ideal client is. I mean, frankly, that is the thing that sets the table prior to going through the framework. The first question that is asked in the StoryBrand framework is, what does your customer want? Well, if you don't know who they are, you have a hard time articulating what they want. You can't make someone the hero of your story if you don't know who they are. So go to thebrandnerd.com/ideal client and get my guide on understanding your ideal client. And in it, you'll find step-by-step instructions and questions to help you develop a customer avatar. There's prompts and there's examples. And if you do this, your messaging is going to hit home. So trust me, once you've nailed that avatar, StoryBrand, and all your marketing, it's going to become a lot more effective. If you found today's episode helpful, I'd love for you to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with a business founder. Until next time, stay curious.